Force you add minutes to it, and then we can try to do minutes and then.
We're all set.
Okay. So, everybody is here on the board. I'd like everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Student recognition. So we have a David Walker, first in the state at the meet of the champions for the triple jump.
So we're going to ask David to stand up, maybe come forward, and we have our athletic director, Ms. Julie, to help. David, you were the state champion in the triple jump. That's pretty impressive. So you represented New Hampshire. How did that go?
It went great. Yeah. I got 10th place in New England.
You got 10th place?
Wow.
Wow, impressive. Maybe you can turn around and face.
He's underselling it a bit. He finished first place in the entire state of New Hampshire, which qualified him for New England. He went to the New England meet. There were over 600 athletes. There were only 4 ninth grade boys out of those 600, and he was one of those 4. So he nailed it. And he's got 3 more years to compete. So we're looking forward to that. But unbelievable spring season for him. It was really, really good.
Expect 3 more seasons, hopefully, as you're a freshman. Wonderful. This is Mrs. Merrill. She's the chair of the school board. I'd like to give you a certificate. Good work. Congratulations, David. Well done.
For those of us, though, who might enjoy sports details, how far did you go
Yes.
for the New Hampshire meet?
I went 42.3. Wow. 42.3.
Wow.
So you ran and you jumped that far?
1 foot jump, 2nd foot jump,
Okay.
both feet jump.
Okay, wow.
At the Laconia meet, he jumped 43'7", which is his best overall, which is a national record for his age when he was 14. He jumped nationally at age 14.
Yeah.
He just turned 15, so he's out of 14.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
What's the state record? So that you're going to be, I'm pretty sure it's 48 feet. 48.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll be watching for that. Awesome.
And then it's Guinness after that.
Yeah.
World records, not the drink.
Excellent. Nice work.
Yeah. So next on the list is the Blobfish Heroes of Asparagus. Did I say that right? Destination Imagination Globals.
Yeah.
So we have Mr. Bryan's going to help us celebrate along with Mrs. Buskett.
Okay.
So how about, could you give us a little bit of the experience, or maybe the students?
I think the students would like to. I just want to say we had the most amazing send-off from ILES. That was a surprise for the kids. I'm getting choked up. It was just so motivating for the whole school. It was so positive. It was so energetic, and I hope it carries us into the next year. It was really that positive. So, but I do.
I would just like to add as well, just not just the kids, but Sue, the effort that you put forward in helping with this. Obviously, all the parents and your commitment as well. Just the coordination of everything from the playing to then providing us, and even the parents sending information about how things were going as well, to the parade and getting to meet kids from all around the world, hopefully will be something that you never forget. But I just want to thank not just the kids for being great ambassadors, but Sue for your efforts, and obviously for the parents as well. So,
We left school Friday at 3 and headed to Manchester Airport where we encountered our first. We realized that there were some students with us who had never seen an escalator. And then we just added from there. It was the first time on a plane, first time in a city, first time on a streetcar, so many firsts. So it was an amazing trip, but I think they would like to share a couple of things if that's okay.
Yes.
Harper, Jules, Wesley, Logan, Declan, you want to come up here?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Declan.
No, I'm good. You're good, yeah,
Sorry. DI was really fun because we had the best coach in all of DI. And I had and to make Logan a little bit happier, his mom was also a good coach. So basically, we were kind of like it was really unexpected when we won regionals. We were like, oh wow. But when we went to states, we kind of like freaked out. We were like, oh. So basically, and then we went on to globals, and which globals was a roller coaster of a ride. And it was first, the whole trip explained that we went to Chicago, but we should have got a hot dog. Anyways, it was just amazing seeing Kansas City, such a great place. So many cool things. Like I saw these really cool places, really cool stores. It was just it would have been less without Mrs. Buskett. Like she helped along so much, and she was so thankful. She literally probably like drained half of her wallet trying to like. So anyways, I'd like to thank Mrs. Buskett.
A really big part of DI is like the pin trading part. I have these are the pins that I collected, but it's so it's like I can pass them around if you want.
That's all right.
It's like a very like it's like you're like meeting other people and trading like pins with them, but like it gets you to understand like how like all around the world some people share like the same things, and allows you like to connect to those people from like everywhere. And I would also like to thank Mrs. Buskett. Place that you got a pen from. What do you mean by that? But maybe what's another country that you got a pen from? Oh well, I got one from Turkey, and I got one from it's mostly just states. There's a lot, and there are also like these pins that you can only get at the global finals, and you have to like buy them, and then you can trade for them.
Did you have New Hampshire pins that you took
Yes.
with you?
So the main New Hampshire set is this row of binoculars here, and then it also includes there's some like newt things, and then there are these like gnome faces, and the gnome is a very iconic part of DI.
Yes, iconic man.
For reasons unknown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wesley, do you have something to add?
We got to Kansas City, and then we didn't go to the convention center for the first day, but then the second day we went, and it was so amazing. It was very large. It was like 500 feet long. And we got in there. There's a bunch of booths for every different person. And there was like 15,000 people who competed. And there was opening ceremony, which we represented New Hampshire in the opening ceremony where we held the flag in the air. And yeah, there was the laser show and it was awesome.
Harper.
So there was this really cool thing, and it was my first time ever, and it was the skywalk, and I was like, begging Mom, I was like, please, can we go on the skywalk? And then when we went on it, it was really cool because it was like 20 feet in the air, and it was kind of like a triangle shape, and their windows were on these sides, and it kind of got hot, but it connected our hotel to the mall, to the train station, and also to some other hotels. And it was really fun just to walk inside of it because it was like you're just suspended over roads and stuff. When I went, I'm gonna talk about the hotel a little. So there was this lobby area, and the lobby area, everybody started doing pin trading in it.
Nice.
And we realized, and we went down there, and we pin traded. And I got a couple the last night. And then the hotel room was on, all rooms were on the 9th floor. And so that wasn't high up compared to that. There was over 20 floors. So.
Wow.
And then there was a pool at the top.
Yes.
And it was an outdoor one. And just spent so much time in there. So, and it connected to the link as well. So you could come in through the link, there's the skywalk, and just go down the hall right to the elevator.
So we have two teammates that were not able to join us tonight, but Declan has just one more he
I
can share
have
from
two
one of
things to
them.
say actually, not one thing.
Sorry.
Anyways, I'd like to say one thing, that I'm gonna talk about the hotel. Well, the hotel was probably my favorite part. Sorry, super important guy who's really obsessed with DI and only cares about going to the convention center. Anyways, I like the hotel. I loved it. I want to go there when I'm like older. Anyways, because it was super. It had a piano in the main lobby. I spent a lot of time at the piano playing the piano. Is that for the piano? It had a fountain, a water fountain, and it looked above you. There was glass rectangles that were like, it looked like needles. There was a big ship. It was absolutely massive, but there was escalators like Caleb, obviously, the first time we was on an escalator, the Corn Life Achievement, Manchester, New Hampshire. that was his one time. And it was awesome. Like he said, there was a pool at the ceiling, but he didn't mention this. So you could swim, swim into this tunnel that brought you into the indoor pool, and there was a hot tub in that indoor area too. And kids could go in it. Anyways, I have something to tell you about. Kaya Orch, one of our members of our team, one of my closest friends, she was not able to make it here tonight, because I'm pretty sure golf, because she really likes golf. And anyways, she wanted to tell the story so badly, and because she isn't here, I want to tell it for her. So anyways, Kaya and Logan were searching around for a set of pins. Logan, which set of pins?
I was searching for these two in particular, so this black dragon and then these two purple dragons.
And anyways, they were like a collection set of pins. You gotta collect them all, just like the things you see at Rite Aid. Anyways, so basically, Kaya and Logan were looking for this last one. The one Kaya wanted was from an anime she watched. And Logan's one was a dragon. And the last night, after closing ceremonies, Kaya and Logan were frantically looking in the hotel because earlier during the convention center, she saw the one she wanted, but the person said no. But no, wait, screw it. Sorry. Never mind, forget that. Anyways, no, it wasn't like that. So basically, they were in the hotel on the last night, and they were going to have to wake up early at 3:00 in the morning definitely got me circles under my eyes for the whole entire day. Anyways, she finally found that pin, but when she asked the person, she said no, but their sibling was like, why do you gotta be so harsh on them? And then they made a fair trade, and the person was from China, and she found the final selection of it, and Logan also found one selection of it. It was a great achievement.
For everybody, if you want to stand and I'll pour. We have Harper. Declan. Kaya is not here this evening.
You want me to take that?
Oh, yes, perfect. Wesley. We have Logan. Jules. And then Caleb is not. So we want to congratulate
Thank you
everybody.
very much.
Well done. The school board did receive a letter, it's in your packets, just singing your praises as the coach. So thank you so much, because it takes a lot of courage to do field experiences. To do field experiences, you have to get on a plane, takes even more courage. So thank you so much.
And this is our thank you for you and the school board.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Can I just say on behalf of both of you?
That's my mom.
Yeah, on behalf of the parents, like Sue was an amazing leader. She cared about our children. She was patient. Emotions were high at times. They were exhausted. We had weekly Google Meets as a DI family where Sue would facilitate it, and we just talked about fundraising and plans and travel, and we couldn't have had a better leader. And I just wanted to add that, and I know that I'd like to say something to this.
Absolutely, echo that, what Mr. Bryant was saying earlier as well. We could not have done this without Sue. So thank you to her, and also thank you to the school board for your support, right off the bat of this whole experience and being behind it and fully supporting this group. Out of 39 teams that competed in their age group from literally around the world, they came in 29th. So I think for a little tiny school in Meredith, New Hampshire, to compete on a global stage was quite the achievement. And we're super proud of them. And the entire time we were there, they kept saying, when we come back next year, when we come back next year. So get ready. They are committed and the wheels are already turning. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
So we have a special guest here, Mr. Jim McFarland, and he's going to give us some information about some Narcan information like that.
Yeah, I appreciate your giving us an audience. I asked Craig Wiggin, my good friend from our Rotary Club, to join me, and he can provide some insight from his experience as sheriff of Belknap County. We're all very painfully aware that with the introduction of fentanyl into the mix of opioids, and particularly now, there's a stronger version of fentanyl that's out there. And what's frighteningly deadly is the fact that it's being laced into many opioids, where that person ingesting that just has no idea that they're not taking what they think they're taking. They're taking something laced with fentanyl. So again, extremely deadly mix. So our club has had an interest in the opioid crisis for several years. We did a major project where we worked with Farnham North down in Franklin to create an inpatient 42-bed treatment center in the Lakes region to assist them in doing that. Easter Seals ran that clinic and runs that clinic. So this is just an extension of our club's interest and commitment to trying to help in any way we can to reduce the risk to people and hopefully save some lives. Now, I read an article in the Laconia Daily Sun on April 13th about this statewide program, first in the nation. Give New Hampshire kudos here, that it's the first statewide program to be initiated where these devices are mounted, okay, as you would an AED device, defibrillator, So when someone has a heart attack, you run to this, you grab it, there are instructions, you try to save that person's life. This is the same concept. You're creating something that's visible, that everyone knows about. That's many times these are placed next to the defibrillator devices on the wall. And so the state is covering the cost of these completely. There's no cost for these. So any organization, municipality, school district can request whatever quantity of these they would like, and the state is providing them. In the Lakes region, the designated distribution site is Navigating Recovery in Laconia. Daisy Pierce is the executive director of that, and she's where I've obtained 5 of these initially. And so she's out of town, so I brought in the heavy guns, Craig, to help me make this presentation. So this is pure and simple, just a public health issue. Putting aside the whole stigma issue with opioids and all of that, at its core, it's a public health issue. So here's the resource, here's the tool the state is providing. I know Daisy had told Mary that the Guilford School District has already deployed these.
Yes,
And
correct.
hopefully we'll be able to do so in Meredith. I rely on your expertise in terms of where they would go. So it's really that simple. It's a box with a Narcan in it. So if I look at this and go, let's just look at my notes. And again, it's funded by the New Hampshire Opioid Response Team. In 2022, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, you just told me approximately 455?
463.
463 people died from opioid deaths in New Hampshire. Now, we're a small state with a small population, so what really matters is the per capita. We're in the top 5 in the country. See, people don't understand that, okay?
No.
We don't have a lot of people, but we have, when you compare to what's happening and the number of deaths in our state, we were number 2 for years, and that's come down a little bit, but the issue is still, you have incredibly dangerous drugs that are amongst us, and you have people who are innocently taking something for a recreational drug, and it kills them. So if this provides a tool, whether it be in the auditorium at school where people gather, then so be it. To me, it's really incumbent upon us. Our club feels very strongly about this, obviously. I do feel very strongly about this, that it's something we should and could be doing just to provide a resource. I know, Mary, you said you support this initiative. The school nurses
Yes, so
support this
I
initiative.
spoke to the school nurses
Right.
and, the state of New Hampshire is seeing with the fentanyl, just such an increase in substances that people think is one thing and then it's laced with something with the fentanyl. The reality is there is no safe experience. That is what the state is promoting at this stage. The increase is it is becoming quite concerning. Daisy from Navigating Recovery did put together a little one-pager for the school board. I had also sent to the school board an article, 2 school resource officers and a school nurse who were needed Narcan because they had ingested vape that had been laced. And so, and the school had to bring in a hazard team to clear because the vapor had gotten, throughout the location. So we're just in a pretty scary time. I did talk also with Officer True and Jason Cornelison, who does our systems, like all of our, relative to our cameras and so forth. We can put an alarm on it so that we know that it's been opened, because it's most important, and the nurses stress this, just like you would with the EpiPen or the glycol that you give to a diabetic. You need to be calling 911 at the same time. So That's a really important piece that we would want to make sure is taking place. I know that Dr. Downing, in terms of just, the high school, middle high school, the potential of, again, kids thinking it's one thing and it's something else is becoming scary. So I think putting it near, I had originally put on as a draft motion for the board, is near the AED machines in the nurse's office. We have, the AED machines are somewhat spread out at the middle high, so I would suggest that maybe it's where the safety team determines makes the most sense.
Question, it wasn't clear, I probably just missed it. Are there multiple doses in a box?
There can be. That's really up to the institution. This current box has one dose of Narcan, but you could have multiple doses. There are sadly cases, which Craig can certainly allude to, where one dose is not enough.
Right, and that, the video alludes,
video
it talks
right.
about that, so I would say you'd want to have 2 or 3.
Okay.
And just in terms of the resupply and, if it's used frivolously and we need more,
You would simply go to Delegating Recovery.
Organizing
They're the
body.
distributor of this, I don't know what the, again, and Mary and I discussed the whole issue of the policy committee changing the school policy relative to providing a policy for the administration of this versus an EpiPen.
What has changed is it's not a prescription medication.
Right.
So,
That's huge.
it's like the AED machine, similar. So I think at the stage it's very different. It's more of a kind of our emergency preparations. And just like our AEDs have a rotation, so they're checked to make sure they're still working. We want to make sure that this is checked to make sure it's still stocked with, I don't know if it expires or not.
I actually have a comment, if I may.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
That I feel underscores the importance of having these on hand. We are kind of focusing on whether or not children are accidentally ingesting something like fentanyl. It's 1 in 4 pills that is laced. But I also want to remind us that it's not just this instance, but you do school searches of bags and things for students. And the reality of exposure accidentally to something like fentanyl, just for a very tiny dusting, is high. And so you do want these on hand for the safety of staff. Not only that, but I recently learned of a statistic to just punctuate this, if I may, but it's gonna freak us out, is on a separate board that I sit at in the state level, somebody from our state lab who tests, the blood of those who are suspected for driving under the influence for fentanyl toxicity and death, the amount of 3 is needed. I can't remember what the unit of measurement is.
2 milligrams.
2 milligrams. Yeah.
The average for people's blood level driving is 11. So that's a lot, and this is why this is very important.
Yeah, the other issue people had asked was liability. Of course, in this day and age, if someone were to administer this, student, nurse, anyone else, New Hampshire has a very strong Good Samaritan law, which covers them completely for their effort to save a life. They can't be sued, whatever else. So that's also important in these litigious times, as I say. So again, I thank you. Are there any other questions you might have?
Just another comment that there does not seem to be any known effect for somebody who doesn't need it, but is
Right.
administered it.
You can give it to dogs.
So it
Yeah.
seems to not have that level of effect.
No, you can give it to dogs and children, and it's like cleaning a window with Windex that's not dirty. If it's not dirty, it's not
But there's
gonna
no
do
harm to
anything.
the individual.
Not unless they happen to have an allergy,
It's
but.
not on opioids.
We're looking for action.
Well, Dr. Potter.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I support this wholeheartedly. I think particularly within the context that this is a state Department of Health supported program. This makes perfect sense. I think comparing it to the AED machines is a valid comparison. This seems like something that I hope we don't use with any regularity or ever, but if
Exactly.
we ever did need it, we need it badly.
Yeah, minutes literally mean everything, so.
It's under new business.
Oh, it's under new
And if you
business.
can, so it's page
Moved it up here
3
now.
of the agenda,
So I'd make a motion to approve installing mailbox boxes in nurses' offices and next to AED machines.
and maybe other locations
Where
that the
another-
state determines.
And other locations is appropriate staff term.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a question. This is the district we're talking about.
Yes.
So,
Interlakes, not
Interlakes.
Ashland.
It's not
no,
Ashland.
understand. So Interlake's being Sandwich,
Right,
And our
or
two
nurse's
schools.
office, whatever, so it's not just,
it's not just
Meredith.
this, correct.
okay, that's great.
Does the county division present any challenges since Sandwich is Carroll County?
I can't answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, is there another body that we would have to go through for Carroll County?
That's under your control.
But I mean, this group is willing to give,
Yeah,
Yeah.
statewide.
very good.
So
So I know there's, in terms of 2 videos that Daisy provided also, which I think you,
I
so
did
one,
see.
how to use Narcan.
Yeah.
Hold the nose, all this, and then what is Narcan, okay? So do you have any other input you'd like to provide?
I can just add a couple of comments. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Craig Wigan. I've lived in Meredith for 35 plus years. My kids are products of the school system here. They both went to college. One of them's a lawyer in DC, so I guess something went right there. So I give credit to the school system for getting them off on the right foundation. I was in law enforcement here in New Hampshire for 40 plus years. Most of it was with the state police. The last 10 years was as the Belknap County Sheriff. So in my law enforcement experience, among some of the less than pleasant ones, I've seen people who are overdosing who have been brought back with naloxone, which is commonly known by the brand name Narcan, as you know. As you folks have already pointed out, it's very safe. It's been around long enough that there are no negative indications with it. As you pointed out, if you give it to somebody that's not overdosing, they're not going to have an adverse reaction caused by the Narcan. What the naloxone does is it stops the opioid receptors in the brain from receiving signals from this very potent central nervous system depressant. What fentanyl does, which is a synthetic opioid, basically it has replaced heroin because it's cheaper for the cartels to make it than real heroin. However, it's about 100 times more potent, depending on how it's manufactured. It takes 2 to 3 milligrams to kill an average sized adult, right? And it's being mixed with virtually everything, which is why it's so insidious and so dangerous. And now the cartels are pressing pills that are being marketed to kids that look like real prescription medications like OxyContin and oxycodone, which are popularly abused. And that's where things get dangerous. So I have seen people literally be brought back to life who have received this couple doses of the nasal spray. And within a matter of 30 to 45 seconds, they're awake and somewhat alert. Sometimes they're combative, but they're alive. It slows down that central nervous system depressant that the opioid is causing within their system that results in them going into respiratory arrest. They just simply slow down. The central nervous system slows down so much, they stop breathing. And we all know what happens when you stop breathing. You go to cardiac arrest, and that's that. So the fact is, this stuff is extraordinarily effective, and I'm glad that you all are willing to support this. I think it's a no-brainer. It's an initiative to keep not just the students, but the staff and anybody else that might come into one of the buildings that's been exposed to this. Yeah, I know police officers have agreed this in. And Mary Ellen, I'm glad you mentioned the vape. It's even being put in vape cartridges and being smoked in what's supposed to be safe materials. It's not. So you don't know where it's going to come from. You don't know how you might ingest it. And this is just one step to keep people a little safer. So kudos.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Our chemistry teacher is here. Could you go on to page 3, number, or
Oh, yes.
science proposal?
Okay, we're skipping around.
Oh,
She has no chair.
you have.
Well, I know, I was gonna do that next, but so getting, I'd like to open up the public comment section at 6:38 PM.
I have none.
Okay, thank you, I was gonna do that, and then we're skipping around here. Okay, under new business, proposal to add earth and space science to the Interlace Middle High School graduation.
no. I'm sorry, I had.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Sorry.
Hey, Ed Twaddell, parent of a couple of kids in Island school system. I would like to register my concern for the communication that I received, that parents received from Principal Downing yesterday, referenced a school presentation that will be given on the 19th of this month. With 7 days of notice, I don't know of any other way to register my concern other than by showing up here. But I am concerned that not all parents were given an opportunity. Only those parents who evidently their children were affected were asked for their input. I am concerned that the speaker that is being brought on was not clearly identified in Principal Downing's communication as the president of the New Hampshire chapter of the NAACP, which I see as a political organization, and that chapter president as a political activist. And I do not, I have significant concerns about that lack of transparency, which I will chalk up to unintentional, but I confess that I'm beginning to. So I welcome questions and further comments, but those are my concerns. Thank you.
Okay. So we're gonna move on. Thank you. So we're gonna move on to the proposal to add earth and space science to the Interlace Middle High School graduation requirements for 2024-2025 school year.
So Dr. Downing is at senior night this evening. Unfortunately, the calendar runs pretty short on time. So we have Holly Beaton, who's the Director of Guidance, and we have Mrs. Divers, who is one of our science teachers at the middle high. So I'll turn things over to the two of you.
Great. So Chelsea will present for us tonight, and the science department did a fabulous job of really researching and giving an overview of a need for a potential new course to add to our graduation requirements. And you'll see in her presentation that all of our neighbors in the Lakes region and beyond have more than 2 credits required to graduate. We have 2 credits of science required to graduate. And you'll see in her presentation that that's less than probably some of our neighbors. And so Chelsea's a phenomenal chemistry, biology, anatomy. What am I missing, Chelsea? Little everything. Teacher at the high school, and the science department did a great job presenting to administration for this request. So, Chelsea.
Thank you for having me. So I do believe that our proposal is one of the attachments on the agenda. I've seen it in there. It's a pretty dense narrative. I'm not good at being brief and concise. So I did just kind of take some of what I thought were the most important points and kind of represent them practically because I'm a science teacher. So it kind of started with us looking at our SAS scores. So our proficiency level, if we look at, this is just at the 11th grade level. We focused on high school since it's a change we want to make to the curriculum. So we are at 63% proficiency in ELA, 57% in math, but only 43% in science. This is based on the 2022 data for 11th graders. So the state has sort of like benchmarks that they set for ELA and math, and we're meeting those benchmarks. They don't have a benchmark that they set for science. The state average is 40% proficiency. That's just the average. That's not to say that that's where we want to be. So we are above that state average, but it's still a little discouraging. You know, we looked at this data and we thought, wow, we don't want to be only 43% proficient when we think about how our students are performing in science. So we started thinking about, why is this happening? And we were aware that we require fewer graduation credits than other surrounding districts do. Help me out, Mark.
Sorry, it might be a little far. I took the ports in the front, so the USBs on the back side.
With the camera right behind. So we looked at the districts that neighbor us directly, as well as some others in the area. And pretty much everybody requires 3 credits of science for graduation. The state minimum is 2 credits, 1 in physical science, 1 in life science, and that's what we require. So we saw that, we're below what other districts are requiring. But when we looked at the SAS scores of those other districts, there wasn't a correlation like we thought there might be. So I arranged everything by increasing SAS proficiency in science. And as you can see there, we're actually like 3rd from the top in terms of our proficiency level. So we're the 3rd bar from the right there. So comparatively, we're actually doing better than a lot of those districts that do require 3 credits of science. And when we look at, which of our students are choosing to take 3 credits or more of science, last year students who graduated, 79% did take 3 credits of science. So there's something more to this picture. It's not just necessarily we require fewer credits of science, and that's why we're not performing the way that we would like to see our students perform. So we thought about instead what we're requiring for science and what's assessed on the SAS assessment. So our state science standards are the National Next Generation Science Standards. They assess physical science, so physics and chemistry, life science, but also earth science. And they have a heavier emphasis in earth science than previous science standards documents do. And in 2017, Joyce Tugel, who is a STEM education consultant, did an evaluation of our science curriculum. And she saw that issues. She saw that we did a pretty good job of covering the life and physical science standards in our core classes. She saw that we had 1 elective course that addressed some earth and space science standards, but we didn't have any core classes that were addressing the earth and space science standards. And since the science SAS was developed based around the next generation science standards, they're assessing students in earth science on that test. And we don't have a course that teaches earth science. So it was actually recommended to us in 2017 by Joyce that we do, kind of look at our curriculum, look at our core courses, and see what we can do to address those earth science standards. So this is what we're currently addressing for standards. The blue bars show the number of performance expectations in life science, physical science, and earth and space science in the next generation science standards. The red bar is what we're addressing in our core classes. So you can see that in life science and physical science, we're addressing about half of the performance expectations in our core classes. If we think about all the science courses we offer, our electives like anatomy, like advanced bio, advanced chemistry, forensics, physics, we're actually addressing all the physical science standards in one way or another, most but not all of the life science standards. But you can see with earth and space science, we're only addressing 9 of those performance expectations and only in 1 course, which is an interdisciplinary course. It's environmental studies. So it also is a life science course too. It's not a course that's dedicated to earth and space science, and it's not a course that many students take. So what we're proposing is that we actually eliminate that elective environmental curriculum, and we instead replace it with with a half credit required course. So replace that environmental studies course with an earth and space science half credit required course that could address those same earth and space science standards. It wouldn't address the life science standards that earth and space or that environmental studies is currently addressing, but we feel like we cover those in our other electives. So this would be a half credit course required for all students for graduation. So moving our requirements from 2 credits to 2.5 credits. And we do feel like we can do that with our current staffing. So we have 3 science teachers at the high school level. So this is not including our middle school teachers. So just our physical science teacher, our life science teacher, and then me who's a mix. So we could potentially do this with our current staffing. We would, however, in order to do that, we would need to probably reduce our sections of our core courses, making those courses bigger. So instead of having smaller class sizes, we would have larger class sizes. So obviously there's drawbacks there, but we feel like we really need to do something about addressing these other standards that the state's assessing us on, that we're not being able to teach kids without this additional core class. And then I just demonstrated how we can fit those standards into our existing competencies. The ones that are in bold are the ones that are currently addressed in environmental studies that we could shift to this new half credit course. There's no space science standards as part of those ones in bold, so we would have to kind of look at how can we prioritize and hit on as many things as we can in a half semester course. Thank you.
I have a question. So when you said there could be larger classes in the core classes, what is your estimate with
So
students?
I believe there's a state maximum of 24.
So 24.
We would be within that.
Within that?
Yeah.
And that's for laboratory sciences?
Thank you.
It's 30 for other.
Craig?
Yeah, I do have a question. When you mentioned we're gonna delete one class, right, and gain this class, but the one class had different aspects. This class that we're replacing with only carries about half of those things. How many other classes does a student have to take to make up the other half of that class? Is it another 2 or another single elective that they could take? Do they have to take 2 electives, 3 electives to get the rest of that class we're deleting?
No.
Or just one?
So the class that we're proposing that we eliminate is an elective class. It's not a graduation requirement. And all but one of the life science standards that are addressed in that class are also addressed in either general biology, the required class, advanced biology, through bio or advanced biology. So all but one of those other standards are addressed in another class.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? I'm not sure if the
Kind of, and that other one is addressed in another class, or will we just?
It would, unfortunately, there would be that one performance expectation that we are now covering that we wouldn't. But if the environmental studies class, I believe this year had 9 students. I forget the exact numbers, it's in the full proposal, but a very small number of students are currently taking that course anyway. So the vast majority of our students are not getting instruction in those performance expectations.
And then my other question is, what is the progression now that you say we have to take 3 classes to get all the credits? What would that progression be for a normal student? Would they take this class first, and then chemistry, and then biology, or physics, or what is the progression?
So currently what students do is they take our integrated physical science as a freshman. As a sophomore, they usually take biology. Some sophomores also take chemistry. Chemistry is not a required class, but a lot of colleges like to see that students take chemistry, so college-bound students often take that course. So as a sophomore or junior, or even a senior, students might take chemistry. So what we're thinking is we'd love to see students taking this new course before the second semester of their junior year, because that's when they take the science staff. So we would want them to have that instruction prior to taking that assessment. But they could take it at any time. Ideally, we'd want them to have freshman science first, because since it would just be a quarter class, we wouldn't really be able to dig into all like the science process skills, like understanding experimental design and variables. Like we wouldn't have time for that. So we'd like them to have that in freshman science first. But they could take it the second semester of their freshman year. They could take it sophomore year, first semester of junior year, to really benefit from having that earth space instruction before the science staffs.
Okay, so for me, we kind of have a progression, but we really don't know that we want a prerequisite of this class, right? Because technically, what you said, we want a prerequisite of the freshman science class before you take this class. Can we do that in our handbook?
Yes, I think we can add that. The science in 9th grade is 1 semester, and then this would be 1 quarter. So this would be half of the semester. So I think some students might be able to get it freshman year. Then if they have biology second semester, sophomore year, they could get it first semester, sophomore year. So I think there's room.
They could even take it at the same time as
So they could take it concurrent.
There'd be no reason why they couldn't.
Concurrent.
But you could put a prerequisite of freshman science to ensure that they have the.
We have that for biology right
Yeah,
now as well. They need to have freshman science before biology.
And another point I'd like to make is anytime you introduce a new requirement like this, so this wouldn't be for this fall, this would be for next fall. And it would start with the current 8th grade at that moment, because we don't want to put something in the middle of somebody's journey, although the state does that sometimes. We just added personal finance recently, but so it would start with the 8th grade class as they enter 9th grade. Not this fall, but next fall. That's really what they propose. If that makes sense.
Thank you for a very good background
Yes.
presentation. You covered all the bases, so.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to
Accept the proposal?
accept this proposal as presented.
I'll second it.
Who was that?
Discussion?
Do you have a discussion, or are you guys good with this?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mark, is there any public comments on this?
Lizzie.
I'm gonna go back to the minutes next. It's all over the place
Sorry,
here.
I you know, it's hard because it was new business, but we
I
have a
understand.
format,
We had
but
a lot
it's
of
nice when
people here.
people.
That's okay.
Chelsea has an
no
early
more.
morning and a young one to get home to.
No more online.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the minutes, so the May 23rd special school board meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion, any corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
June 1st, policy review committee minutes, informational items, this is Moriarty, that's attachment 2.
Just information.
Okay. Current bills payable, general operating expenses, attachment number 3.
So moved.
That's manifest 3037. Charlie
Second.
and Mark, any discussion, any questions? No? All those in favor of paying bills?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Superintendent, assistant superintendent report, enrollment report, which I think was handed out.
Yes, yeah, giving you an updated,
Updated one. That one could be,
updated, so currently enrollment in the district pre-K through 22 is 925 students.
principals reports.
Do we have, Mary,
Sorry.
yet any indication on kindergarten?
So, Mr. Bryant, do you have an updated number on kindergarten?
We are still under 45 right now.
Okay, and Mr. Hilger, you're at,
Oh, let's see. I think 8 or 9, and then we had some first graders come out of nowhere, so K1's looking like 18, I think.
okay.
Okay. Principals report. Information item. So we have Mr. Bryant and Mr. Hilger.
Any highlights to share?
I would just like to reiterate that tomorrow night is our community barbecue, rain or shine. I got an indoor-outdoor plan, and we are honoring the retirement of Mrs. Adrians and Mrs. Booty as well for a combined 54 years of service. So it's a big deal tomorrow night, and we're gonna go regardless of the weather, so that's exciting. Our 6th graders are off to move-up day tomorrow, so that's a big day for them as well. And then next week, we've got middle multi-age headed to Lost River, and then we have class night on Thursday to recognize the excellence. So it's busy out there right now, wrapping up some of the assessment work, getting the kids prepared to wrap up the year. But it's all good. It's all positive. Can I answer any questions?
No.
And I would like to just recognize the concert last week. Great. It was a great concert. Again, we held it at the fairgrounds outdoors, and we had a great turnout. So, thank you to the Sandwich Fairgrounds for their support, Jason Cornelius for his sound support. You guys, the school board superintendent, thank you for supporting us there, and Dr. Sori and Ms. Hart for the effort that they put into that concert each year. So. Max Weiner, Max is 9 or 10, so he's a 4th grader, and he's I think it's fair to say he's a prodigy guitar player. He played Let It Be, the Beatles song Let It Be, with Mr. Watson's son Adam, who is a collegiate musician. So Adam played bass, but Max played guitar, and
did a guitar solo, which was pretty memorable. So, shout out to Max.
I think all three of us were there, and
Yes.
it was amazing. I
It was
think
awesome.
Dr. DeSori is a wizard with these kids. I remember the first concert I went with of her that she did. First of all, they were so different from how they used to be in the past, but there was a class that clearly really did not want to sing. I mean, they just weren't gonna do it, and she gave them, she choreographed it, and she gave them percussion things, and there was a class like that in this one too. And I just think it's wonderful to see that, it's really fun.
So, Mr. Hilger, are you suggesting that perhaps the school should consider the creation of a Jimi Hendrix Memorial Award?
I think that would be well received by at least one upper multi-age student. He has his Genius Hour project this year. He started his own podcast. He calls it Rockin' with the Roses, and he interviews people based on their love of a band. I was the subject of the first podcast, and he just did one on Led Zeppelin, and I had a family friend who saw Led Zeppelin, but also first concert with Jimi Hendrix live. So, so yeah, this young man is all about classic rock and the guitar. It's a good outlet for him.
Sounds like a great kid.
Yeah.
Jimmy died 2 young.
Bryant, do you have some highlights to share?
So last week, we were able to have our Title I Family Night. Our reading specialist, Carolyn Malahan, along with 7 or 8 staff members, provided reading materials, music, games, just a way for students and families who participated in Title I, either reading or math throughout the year, to come together. We had, including families, up to 100 people participate last week. So that's just great to see the work that we're doing and be appreciated by the students and parents as well. And obviously what Mrs. Malahan's been able to do in her first year. For like Jeremy said, coming to the end, trying to battle the weather with some of our field experiences. I'd like to, 4th grade, on behalf of 4th grade, I'd like to thank Mr. Billings for helping us with Page Pond, getting that going when the Belknap mill kind of called to say we had to hunt a little bit. So we're able to, again, use some of our local resources for some field experiences as well. As Mr. Hilger said, our 6th graders as well are moving up to 7th grade to gain that experience. And then we have our band and chorus concert coming up on Thursday, our spring concert. And then next week, the race will finish with field day, where 5th and 6th grade students will actually be preparing the events for the younger students, which I think is phenomenal. And then the 6th grade recognition or ceremony will be Thursday night at the auditorium.
And Mara Vista was very successful. And just to let you know, like the legacy, the experience leaves for students, the prom was at Mara Vista. And I do believe they were doing the moose. I'm not going to be able to do it during.
There was a great big moose, right?
So they were doing that at the prom. So
that's so
just
great.
It really shows how powerful that experience is at 6th grade. And I know Mrs. Beaton has Dr. Downing's
Yes, so I'm
update.
filling in for Dr. Downing. She's over at the middle high for the senior night tonight, which started at 6, where seniors are sharing their poetry and speeches and a real culminating celebration for them. And they're receiving their caps and gowns tonight as well, and refreshments at the end. And then she also wanted me to mention that on Monday, there's a school-wide assembly with speaker Mr. McKim. He's from the Organizational Ignition organization to facilitate an assembly surrounding respect and civility. This work aligns with the spirit work that began last year and is to address behavior and language that we've been seeing in the school. Mr. McKim recently met with a small group of students and parents and faculty to discuss some of these issues facing our diverse student population. Several members of the student group will be introducing Mr. McKim on Monday at the assembly, along with some background information about why we are doing this work. And we hope that you can join us, and that's at 8:30 on Monday. Graduation is Saturday, rain or shine, the 17th at 10 a.m. If it's shine, it'll be where it was last year in the lower parking lot, overlooking the field and the mountains. If it's rain, it'll be in the gymnasium. Families are receiving 6 tickets for outdoor seating or 4 tickets for indoor seating. And if there's overflow opportunity to watch the graduation in the auditorium on the big screen. Will be live streamed. My thanks to Mr. Parsons. Appreciate that. Final exams are coming up soon on the 21st and 22nd with a 12:30 dismissal on both days for high school students, where middle school students will have regular days and then their day at 3. June 23rd is a remediation and the last day for students. This is an early dismissal day for everyone at 12 o'clock. The 6th graders, as Jeremy mentioned, join us tomorrow from both schools for a tour and time with the 7th grade teachers. And then we welcome the 6th grade parents and families next week on Tuesday night into the school to the library at night. So she apologizes for being absent tonight and appreciates your continued support. Amen.
Is Mr. McKim, I guess, is that the person that,
Yes.
our public
Yes.
speaking about, so it's Monday?
It's Monday, yes.
So I was gonna ask that same question, so the group that he's from, Impact, is not NAACP or is it related? Were you all aware that he's affiliated with the NAACP or not or is this incorrect information or?
Dr. Downing did vet the individual. I do believe he is a member of the NAACP. I don't know.
But not an officer or a.
Not that I'm aware of, I could be incorrect.
Yeah, he is.
But he does have an organization. The structure of this is really around respect.
Right,
It's a
right.
respect campaign. And she has been working with him this spring and has had positive experiences.
Yeah, I you know, I guess like you are making a comment, but I think these kinds of things are incredibly important. I also think after a long career of thinking about it and working with diversity issues, that if we value diversity, it can't be just the diversity we're comfortable with. We have to be valuing the whole range of perspectives and so being sensitive to a comment like the one that he made and just making sure that, you know, yes, to interview a group of students and parents who are minorities in our community, who have been subject to disrespectful behaviors and comments is perfectly understandable and legitimate. You know, I don't know, I think it's important to register comments like this and just put them in the backs of our minds and say, next time, let's think about, you know, where the political triggers are. We're in such a politicized environment right now.
It's a hard topic to broach at all.
It is, yeah.
And they are, you know, I think this is the beginning. This is, you know, hopefully there'll be other opportunities for everyone to be involved.
And I think it bears repeating that this is in response to behavior from students.
Right.
It was deeply troubling to this board and to many members of our community, and that this isn't out of nowhere. This is out of a response to something that happened, a series of things that happened over time.
And continuing concerns
Sure.
that they're trying to hopefully have a respect campaign that will help the
Everybody.
entire school culture.
Everybody, yeah.
I did want to just make one statement to Mr. Bryant. I just wanted to thank the Friends of the Library in Meredith because we had that Pete the Cat reading to the kindergartners. So I just wanted to mention.
Cat.
I'm not supposed to divulge. They thought I was-
Costume.
they thought I was
The cat is a real.
I'm not supposed to say anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, they just didn't know. But anyway, I think that it was great and the kids really had a fun time with it. So, okay, financial update.
So you have, it was distributed in the materials. It looks like this. Let me just hold this one up. It does let you know that, you know, adjusted available, just like 474,000. Some remaining pending encumbrances, expenses, excuse me, about 91,000. I think in a little bit we'll talk about unassigned fund balance.
Well, I'm letting you go too fast, so slow
Okay.
down for a second. Why are there
at the bottom in the box, pending encumbrances, why are they not categorized up in the general fund or general fund salary and benefits?
They're grouped as, those are things that are anticipated as expenses.
Okay.
They've been encumbered.
But they're not included in the encumbrances at the top of the page.
Correct, because they're ones that, because we have closed out POs, any other encumbered, any POs at this stage that
Right,
are not
and
being used.
That's
were
typically a
closed.
May or an April
Yep,
decision.
Yep, and that has happened.
So what you're telling me, if I hear you right, is that that bottom box is talking about encumbrances that
Are
were not
remaining, correct.
in there. Okay.
Any questions? Correspondence, superintendent?
So you had the correspondence from the parent giving accolades to Mrs. Buskett.
Susan and the DI.
Board secretary?
Nothing to report.
I have correspondence and I forgot to bring it. There's a card from the teachers to thank all of us for our giving them the roses for teacher appreciation.
Oh, how
That
lovely.
that
It was very
apparently
sweet.
lasted like all-stars.
It
Oh,
was
really?
amazing how long those lasted. I
Yeah.
was shocked by it. I mean, really, the longest lasting roses I've ever seen.
Was that night in your car, Charlie?
You wonder what.
Formaldehyde?
No, it's not bad. It comes up, it ends up something else.
Okay, under old business, the Interlakes Middle High School main entrance sign updates, attachment 5.
So Mr. Bryant and I have talked further and he has,
Mr. Swanker, you may.
Mr. Swanker, did I say Mr.
Yeah,
Bryant?
that's
Brian Swanker.
You get your own
Apparently tired today, my apologies. Mr. Swanker, I think in terms of durability, what we're recommending at this point is to go with what was option 1, which is really a new sign and message board. Just go back to the old, change the letters.
So no electronic.
No electronics, and clean the structure, repair it for about $8,800 and do some electrical repairs for $35,700, and I think we had encumbered 40. So it falls within, and I think it will give us a durable sign. And I think I think there are other priorities at this stage, so not going electrical is certainly a reasonable decision to make.
So this is not going electrical.
This is
but
not
yet
going
you have
It's electronic. Just to be clear, you're saying
No, this has
no.
a light, this is light.
Electronic.
No, no, this is a
Behind
lit
it.
sign. It's
Yes,
it's
this
an
is
attractive,
lit,
modern.
It's lit.
Right.
Message
sign.
board is
And it has
not
a clean board to put the
Manual
letters on.
letters.
Right.
I was gonna ask what the
Like
35,000
a marquee.
for electrical was, if it wasn't.
No,
It's the sign.
That's the total.
But that's for the electricals for lights.
Backlit.
Right,
It's backlit.
correct. Yeah. There are certain requirements with signage that you have to light.
Should we
Sure,
have
there's
a
different ways one can light, though.
You need a motion and approval?
Yes.
35,000? Yep.
Motion to approve option 1 for the main entrance sign.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Isn't that feel
I
nice?
disagree.
Okay.
Any discussion?
No, I disagree.
It almost felt nice.
Hiring update, attachment 6. Mrs. Moriarty.
Attachment 6, so just to give you a sense of where we are in the hiring process, later on in the agenda, you will be asked to make a motion to fill one of those openings for the physical education teacher at Sandwich. We are doing pretty well filling openings. As you can see, we certainly still have paraeducator openings that we need to keep working to fill. And we do still have one teaching position open, which is the Laker Learning Lab teacher, which is funded through IDEA. And that is a special education teacher position.
How confident are you about, there's so many paraeducators, particularly special education paraeducators?
It's tough. I honestly, we're in a tough hiring environment. Sometimes paraeducators historically don't get filled sometimes until August. People make decisions at that point. We are constantly advertising, but it is probably one of the harder parts to fill.
What kind of, just a matter of information, what kind of training is required for a special education paraeducator?
So they do not need to come with training. We do provide training. Training is difficult to do because we need people with students. So it's a lot of on-the-job training, but there is RBT training, which is registered behavior technician training. We do that in the summer. We pay people to attend that, but that is people able to attend during the summer and to be paid to attend. So it's difficult to train. We have limited days within the contract. We try to get CPI training for individuals working with students with particular needs. We are in the process of needing to, we try to have internal trainers. We're at a point that we need to replenish our internal trainers for that.
Are all paraeducators special education paraeducators?
No, the large majority are, but not all.
And is being a paraeducator who's not a special education paraeducator seen as a better job, easier job?
I don't know. I think they get, I think paraeducators are pulled in a lot of directions. There is a need, we have lunch coverage, we have recess coverage, right? You have to supervise children all the time. And when we have absences, if we have a teacher absent and we don't have a substitute or there's no one else, they may be assigned to, oversee that class that day. So it takes a great deal of flexibility.
Yeah, we've just heard so much about
Yeah.
the special education paraeducators this year.
I think the large majority are special education paraeducators, which is why I think we've heard probably more. But it is a difficult position. I think the constraints, so there's a lot of constraints relative to length of day, and also length of year. So when you think about training people, it's difficult not to have them with students, and it's difficult financially to have other times to train. So I think it's a complex problem. But that is just giving you an update of where we are.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Interlakes Middle High School locker room proposal and timeline, attachment number 7.
So in order for us to really kind of move forward with the locker room, there's another phase of rendering of drawings that have to happen. They start getting into greater detail. This kind of is more of a conceptual idea that you have in front of you. And to put a price on it so that you can start preparing for how you might want to proceed with potentially funding this. We need the next level of architectural work, which Mr. Smucker thought would be about $20,000 to do in order to get to this next refined level. So what we are hoping you will consider doing is approve the actual layout so that then we can have the architect go to the next level.
And this is relatively unchanged from what
This has not been changed since it was last presented.
Are you also asking us at the same time to include the additional little bit of money for looking at other areas?
So that you have already done.
We've already done that, okay.
Yes, so this is,
All right.
and those are smaller areas. This is, you've got to think about like what kind of flooring goes in, like in
Right.
order for them to develop a price for this.
We've been talking about this for
a long time.
a very long time, probably before you joined.
And again, this is a much more comprehensive, you could certainly just do a coat of paint, but it really doesn't solve the problems.
It's been happening for a long time, right?
Yes.
You get to make the motion,
Right.
Yeah, I know, it's just the wording. Motion to approve the layout as presented.
And the
Us and
20,000.
Funding.
And to, I guess we should have probably included to work with the architect for the next,
For the next
Level
level,
of
well, that's why I was
drawings.
looking at the words. Layout depicts a detail that we're not at yet.
In the amount of $20,000?
No, I mean,
Oh.
what I'm saying is the wording of the motion is to
Yeah.
approve the layout as presented. We don't know what the final layout is.
Well,
We know
you
what
know,
the
you know
general layout
the
is,
shit,
and
the-
detail.
This is the
outlines,
layout,
but
but we
didn't
need,
approve
we
the
need
other
more
stuff.
comprehensive drawings. So we have to approve what's here and fund the next step in the architectural process. And are you comfortable with a dollar amount on that, or do you want?
I think that's fine. Brian thought that 20,000 was reasonable.
Then let's,
Then add that and to include the $20,000
Up
for,
to.
up to 20,000 for next level design and layout.
Next level, yeah.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Is there any questions?
I guess I have concerns about this. The last time this came up, I had asked questions about this level of detail was told that that was done. So now coming back to us to prove another 20,000 to get it done does not make sense to me. We asked questions about, do you know what the mechanicals are? Do you know what the electrical looks like? And it was all included. So this is now a different level. And I'm concerned that we're coming back to this and asking for more. So I'm trying to understand what communication didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I want to say, okay, this is a brand new set of architectural prints. What do we do to say we're going to keep these in a safe place? What system are we storing them in? What CAD system are they using? What do we get to do to modify it to go to another architect? There's many questions that to me haven't been answered about the control of this. So I understand it needs to be done, but the communication of it wasn't done correctly,
Okay.
right?
And I can't speak to that this evening. Mr. Swanker wasn't available tonight. In terms of, my understanding is that the architect will go in with much greater detail to create for a pricing out of this particular design. Relative to speaking last time about, we know where the mechanicals and those type of things are. I think he was referring to, they do know where it is, but they do need to put the greater detail into, I guess, what they would need in order to make this a
But
reality.
they said, this layout would contain what we have. We don't have to do anything with what we have
Right.
mechanically. So I guess that's maybe the communication.
Yeah.
We looked at it, we said it was okay, this layout fits what we currently have. So to me, no changes are needed, so then why do we need to do anything else?
So what I can do is get that information and bring, share that with the board through correspondence. I'm not able to answer that this evening.
Do we need to put a dollar amount then on this? I mean,
Well, it's to create the next level of drawings. There will be a cost associated with that. That much I'm confident, as I understand it, that this is not enough for the job to be priced out. Like, you have to develop the next, a more granular level of detail.
what did we, last meeting, the additional funds was to look at the trainer room and all that, and that was a separate dollar amount.
Correct.
Do we
That was
remember?
$6,000, and that includes some bathrooms.
And that'll probably be the same thing, it'll just be something like this, then you'll add more to
Yeah,
get
more.
more, so
I'm hopeful that some
how
of
many
those,
times do you wanna come back to the well with this, right?
well, my hope is that those others are much smaller. But at least the restrooms and the changing of the offices, I'm hoping that it will be a much smaller project to create a design for. This is taking basically kind of gutting a space and building it up.
I mean, I have to say, I'm not an architect. I don't know what it takes to do this. And if Brian and the representative of Chris Williams are saying that they need to go through a process and that process will take funding, I appreciate Craig's concerns about the communication and kind of not seeing this coming, but it's gotta be done. I mean, we need the drawings. We can't go to the contractor with these. There's gotta be a lot more to them, so. my feeling is we have to support this, but that's my vote.
I guess my point would be that we should have known that upfront.
I know.
That, and
To
maybe the
Craig's
lesson
point.
learned
Yeah.
there is, okay, if you choose us, what's next? And is that included in your original?
Well, I think being clear about what the phases are of the development of the proposal.
I agree, I think Craig's spot on with it, it's more communication, because I did hear, I was expecting this, actually. Because there was gonna be engineering, and I thought it was more Craig that they were talking about, they knew what they had. But
They didn't have
we
to
knew,
break stuff
we
up.
didn't know yet until the engineering was done about the specifics to get to that point where you can actually go to bid with that level of detail.
I think we could have done a more effective job. Like phase one is just getting it conceptual, phase two is,
Detailed drawings.
so my apologies on that. We'll take that learning for the next build out.
So do we have now, for this project, right? I would hope that Mr. Smucker has a good, what I'll call specification, building specification of exactly what he wants on these architectural prints.
Yes.
So that when we receive them, we have them. And we have to store them, right? So that they
Yes.
can be used later.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how that works in the school system. I mean, the school's probably all on paper right now, right?
Yes.
So then what phase does this do and how does he outdate the paper drawings and say we're doing this?
Yeah.
So it just,
I can
do
certainly.
the
recall
whole
that was-
process.
I recall
Connect with
that
them on
was
that.
part of the conversation, that this represented something of value that we had moving forward, just
Yeah.
this level of measurement and drawing. And that one of the advantages of sticking with Chris Williams' system was that they were the done ones that had already gotten us here, and that won't have to be reinvented.
No, I understand that, but there's even the original drawings of the
Yeah.
building, right?
But
Now
the
this-
original
this
drawings
is
have been
that
put
space.
into a CAD.
So he's got, now Brian has to manage, okay, those old drawings aren't any good, now I have this new drawing, but it's with this architectural firm. If I ever wanna change firms again, do I have this CAD data in a system or a file that can be used in a different CAD system for a different architect?
Yeah.
I don't wanna be bound to Chris Williams because they run Architectural 2000 and the next guy we go to is drafting 4000 and I don't have the right file space, right, the right kind of file.
That all makes good sense. So I can certainly speak with Mr. Swanker on that. We have a whole lot of paper copies.
Okay. All those, any more questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Say no.
I'm saying no also. ESSER three funded HVAC improvements contract award, Mrs. Moriarty, that's attachment 8.
So we have gone out to bid. We have all the approvals from the state relative to using ESSER funds, and Eckhart and Johnson is who is recommended. They were the only one to provide a bid.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions?
The only questions I'd have, Mary, is, I mean, is this just the middle high building or is this both?
No, this is for the district. This is the $748,000 for the scope of work that we presented back in the fall. So it will be all buildings. It's $748,000 of ESSER funds.
ESSER funds. Okay. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Growing Roots licensed mental health services, attachment number 9, Mrs. Moriarty.
So we did go back to Growing Roots to try to see if we could do some negotiating. We have come up with a revised plan. It's not falling within what was budgeted. It's an increase of just almost $33,000. What we were able to be able to negotiate was 12 students on health insurance, 18 would be non-health. They would be looking to see their monthly revenues from those health insurance paid ones, and depending on what their revenues are, to offset other administrative type of costs, related to running their business. They would charge us up to $38,640, but it would be done on a monthly basis. So you have to divide that by 12, which is about $3,200 a month, up to. It could be less. So we are looking for an increase to the Growing Roots contract. We budgeted 125, so an increase of about $33,000, which I am later recommending the board consider unassigned fund balance.
You're looking at me.
Well, the unassigned, I want to make sure I got it right.
That is correct.
Make sure I'm using the right vocabulary. I will say Growing Roots, it's an important piece of, quite frankly, the safety of our building. When kids need licensed mental health to sometimes resolve issues, and unresolved issues can present safety for self and for others. So I know it's difficult because schools are becoming an agency that is providing a service, but schools do a lot of social services.
In so many different places, it's the buy versus build.
Yeah.
Rent versus
Correct.
build decision.
And I think this is a good, it's good to buy. I think we get different counselors with different backgrounds versus if we were hiring our own licensed mental health counselor. That's one person that you're asking to fit every need. And, we have people working with very young children, we have people working with adolescents.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the additional funding for Growing Roots.
Move this presented.
What is the dollar amount? $30,000?
$32,780 over what was budgeted.
Motion to approve additional funding for Growing Roots licensed mental health services in the amount, what did you say, 32,000?
$780.
$32,780.
Okay, so Mark, you want a second? So Mark did the motion and Duncan second. All those in
Wait a
favor?
minute,
Oh,
so just so
discussion,
I'm
sorry.
clear, then we're saying that we want to take it out of the general fund balance? Or
You have
Unassigned.
unassigned fund
Unassigned.
balance for next year,
Okay.
that I think you'll make some decisions about. If you weren't to do that, we would find it within the current operating budget for next year, which
Right.
we have some staff positions that we've not hired, which gives us some flexibility.
Well, that's why I'm worried, because we added all the consulting services that weren't
Correct,
on
and
the
in
budget, right?
the,
So,
and so in the unassigned fund, maybe you want to wait and make this motion after you talk about the unassigned fund balance, because there is a recommendation for special education
Yep.
costs and that too.
Can we make this motion just to get this done, how we fund it?
Yeah,
Be done
okay.
at another
yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. Any more questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we've already
We've
done
done new business, all the way
Yeah.
down to you.
suicide
C.
prevention.
Yeah.
So this
Suicide prevention plan?
This fits, certainly with the Growing Roots. We have Mrs. Beaton here and Mrs. Ransom and Mrs. Martin. And to talk about our suicide prevention plan, we bring this back to you annually so that you can approve it. We do 2 hours of training for all staff on suicide prevention. That is a state requirement. And we do that during our time that we have with staff. That's not staff doing outside of, so we have a finite amount of time for training, and required trainings are certainly taking more and more of that, but this is important, and you have some updates about the plan.
Right, so I think one of the biggest updates about the plan is the new 988 hotline number that wasn't in our old plan. So we wanted to make sure that was in the plan, make sure it was in the flow chart that goes to every school. The counseling offices all have packets and protocols to follow. So we wanted to make sure 988 was visible and in there. 988 is the national number, and there's an 800 number that's a New Hampshire number, so we have that one as well. I think another small item was we had a particular organization that we had listed that would do our trainings each year. And that can change from year to year. So for example, this year we use the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. There's many organizations that have trustworthy programs like NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. UNH has a program. So the state of New Hampshire requiring 2 hours of training for all staff and related people to the district, anyone working with children, every school in the state needs to find this training and complete this training. So there's lots of different nonprofits that have the training. So I just wanted to make sure that that was more flexible in the plan because we use different folks. But I think otherwise we've just tried to keep things current with names and addresses and that kind of thing. I think 988 was the biggest addition to the plan. And then Lisa, do you want to speak a little about our statistics? And so Lisa was here at the last meeting. A few of you may have missed that, but she spoke on the youth risk behavior survey. So that provided quite a few statistics, of course, for our plan as well.
Yes, we sort of outlined briefly for you last meeting that the most recent youth risk behavior survey results were 2021, and there was a marked increase in our students' mental health issues, specifically around feeling sad and hopeless and suicide ideation and more severe thoughts about suicide. And so we want to make sure that our staff and students and community are well addressed and well aware of this. We have a student population that is trained in youth suicide prevention, and we've started to graduate them all out. So we'll be holding another training in the fall for a younger crew, and to do more student to student and student to adult presentations on youth suicide prevention.
Great.
I have a question. These questions, best practices, student safety questionnaire, where do they come from? Who developed them and how are they validated?
Yeah, so I think they came from the Psychological Association, from our school psychologists and their association.
Is there a minimum threshold of age that these questions are asked of for a child?
We have the minimum age that I have.
I have issue with these questions being asked K through 12. Yeah. I looked back through child fatality review reports, and from 2005 up until 2022, there are no suicides listed for children 10 and under. And as I look at these, I'm concerned that a child at a developmental level of an early elementary age could be asked these questions, and I don't feel that that is appropriate. So I'm wondering, like, how and if there's differentiation between that younger age group, how are they approached in a more developmentally appropriate approach than these questions, which would be more appropriate for preteen to teenage years?
So we could definitely look into that and definitely go back to, and all of the counselors meet to review this, so I'll definitely go back to my elementary counselors. That's a great point. Thank you.
We can also maybe tap growing roots as well.
Have the questions been asked of elementary kids, young elementary kids at this point?
I don't think that there's been any suicide ideation at this point.
I've had experience, yep.
Okay.
And were these questions used?
So do we need to put this off until we get some
So we
clarification?
can bring this back in August. There's no reason, we have an existing plan, and we can look into that and bring it back for the August meeting with hopefully an update relative to developmentally appropriate.
Table till August.
Table.
Yes.
Okay. And I do want to just say 988 has worked well. We've needed to use it in a few instances, and that has been a very beneficial tool.
Is that something we're easily able to track as data coming in on a per month or however you do it basis?
Sure, sometimes it's given to families to call from home. Sometimes we've done it at school and it was a virtual appointment, the counselor came in virtually, so we can definitely track that.
Great.
Sure.
Thank you.
But it is that's a real improvement in the state relative to supporting individuals who are in a crisis.
And I don't think that there shouldn't be questions asked. I just don't think these are the
Yeah,
questions.
so I think certainly something we can improve on.
Do you have any public comments? Because it's been,
2 hours.
Yeah, I'm gonna close public comment.
I don't have any online, no.
7:37 PM. Okay,
So that's tabled.
yeah, and we're closing public comments at 7:37 PM. End of year encumbrances.
So you have in front of you a document that includes what is an estimated fund balance. This includes revenues, so you saw expenses on the other side. This number includes revenues. And we had a warrant, I'm sorry, this was a paper that was provided in those 3 documents at the beginning that have now migrated.
Yep, we got it.
Recognizes in like,
Okay,
I got it.
It's the 3 pages that were at your desk with a paper clip.
I have an extra.
We believe,
Maybe I more.
Okay.
is everybody just want to do it, or?
We all have it.
Okay.
Oh, we all have it.
Okay.
We have a lot of papers.
I can look at it.
Okay, so about 1.2 fund balance is estimated. 250,000 is what was a warrant article for facilities. And you retaining, you may want to consider, 50% of what you can retain would be 325,000. If you look at the very bottom of the page, where it has the RSA, that would be 2.5% of what the net assessment was for 22-23. The maximum you could retain is 650,000. Last year, if you look in the middle of the page, you retained for 22-23, 340,000. So staying somewhat consistent is not a bad thing. The retainage you've often done is to offset potential contracts. So
I'm sorry, offset what?
the impact of contracts. So you will have, so for this coming year,
Right, you'll have that one.
23-24 school year, you've got the impact of the teacher contract that was approved in March. You retained $340,000 to help offset that impact. You will have next year for 24-25, you will have a support staff contract. So you may want to retain, you could retain as much as 650,000. There's an RSA that limits how much you can retain, and retain lets you carry it forward to another year.
As opposed to giving it back to taxpayers.
Correct. You're giving it back to taxpayers, but at a different point in time.
If you don't use it.
No,
No,
you're
it-
reducing the subsequent budget is what Mary's saying.
It is,
Oh,
it is
gotcha.
retained to offset an assessment. It's
Gotcha.
not to
Yeah.
be used for something else.
Right.
So that leaves you then with $601,000 if you do the 50%. I am recommending you consider with this unassigned fund balance, $126,000 for safety, $32,780 for the growing roots,
Wait a second, Mary.
Right here.
Oh, there it is. Sorry.
and for special education, as you know, we have unanticipated costs associated with that. That would be $192,000. So that would give you $351,000 that you are encumbering for those purposes. You had, during the budget process, we had estimated a unreserved fund balance of $250,000 to go back to offset the taxes. With what you retained, that would be about $590,000 to offset taxes. So that is what is being proposed for your consideration.
Just as an observation, we need to be tighter in our budgeting. We should not have to make these kind of six-figure decisions because we happen to have that much money at the end of the year.
Some of this is related to the revenue associated with, when the fund, when the field, when that expendable trust hit, it hit after July 1. Because when the trustees released it, it hit in the July 1
So it
calendar
got
itself,
distorted by putting it into a
Correct.
year ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
or year after.
Good to know.
Yeah. So that is definitely an impact.
Now, retain for assessment reduction 24-25. That was what the one you said, that can be no more than 50% of the max allowed, or?
Well, that's 50% of the max allowed. The max allowed is 650. So if you could do as high as 650.
But then that would reduce
That would reduce
the
what.
590
Correct.
Yes.
by.
It would reduce in other ways.
It becomes a game of rob Peter to pay Paul, depending on which direction.
Right.
But they're both
But
paid
it
off.
has to live under the premise that we do not put non-recurring funds into recurring expenses.
Yep.
Because that's the road to disaster.
Yeah.
There was one thing I was looking at, a potential teacher hire. And whenever we talk, it's the ESSER sheet,
Yeah, we're not, that's the next one.
but it's an example of.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the class size reduction.
Literacy support, proposed funding out of ESSER, which we don't get next year.
Correct.
Does that mean we end literacy support, or do we find money from somewhere
I think
else?
those are conversations.
Yeah, so that's,
Or restructuring, which, how we might use other resources, but that is complicated too.
So you're looking for a motion?
Yes.
motion to approve end of year encumbrances up to as presented.
Up to what dollar amount?
So it's as presented.
That's
As presented.
351, 280.
351, 280, is that the one? Yeah.
So you're,
But that's only from the
you're voting to retain the 325, 653.
325.
Get to that, yeah. Yeah.
So I think what you might want to propose is just as presented, so
Yeah.
it keeps
Yeah.
this whole thing intact,
All right,
which
where
is
it
the retainage, the encumbrances, and the unreserved going back to offset the assessment.
In two different counters.
Yes, but
This is just confusing the way that motion is. So as presented,
as presented.
Second.
any more questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna say, I'm not voting, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Okay.
Paying the bills.
I'm learning, but.
Yeah, it's a hard one to understand.
It's a steep climb.
It is.
Hey, it's only $31 million.
You get to do it again next year at
Yeah.
the same time.
Next year I'll be more active.
Say she's volunteering for the budget.
Oh, God.
You don't want me on the budget committee, Mark, you don't.
You're all on the budget committee. There
All on
is
the
no
budget,
other
right,
budget
there's no
committee.
other choice.
Right. You all get to hold that seat.
All right, ESSER grants, updates and proposals, that's attachment 13.
Right here.
So,
Just
Thank-
had it. Yes,
Is it this one?
there's a lot here, okay. That's this one with the pink in the back.
Well,
Yes,
it's
it is.
number 13.
Yeah.
Oh,
we
you're
will,
right.
we will staple in the future and we will put page numbers on the bottom.
That's okay. We got it.
Hopefully we'll have electronic.
Page numbers on the bottom.
I
so
know,
you can
that's
have
the
it.
goal.
So it's attachment 13 and then there's a
Yeah.
chart on the
Chart
back.
on the back.
Oh.
Everybody have?
Yeah.
Copy?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Okay, we got it. That's it.
So I think looking at the table is probably the best. So purple is spent, okay? Those are funds that have been spent. For ESSER 2, I am proposing that you increase from 60,000 for electronic access to 76. This helps us during the budget process. We have tried to reduce technology hoping that we would be able to use some ESSER funds to offset. That allows us to continue to pay for Schoology, School Pass. So they are reoccurring costs, but they were things that started out of the pandemic that we wanted to maintain. So,
How long will you maintain?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How long will you maintain?
I don't see us going backwards. I think forever.
This isn't a yearly cost though, right?
No.
This isn't software
This is over
updates
3
that-
years.
Yeah.
Hand washing stations, particularly trying to use it within the art room. We've had, I'd say, inadequate hand washing space in that area that we've needed to really rework. The steam area, thinking more of the auto shop, has, I would say, inadequate sinks. So this would allow us a way to use the funds for something that we need that's more of a permanent upgrade.
I'm confused, they're adequate, or we not need to replace them?
So like there's one sink in the art room, so we'd be using the existing plumbing. We'd be using the existing walls, so we don't consider this a construction project that ESSER might if you were dealing with different plumbing and different walls.
Okay.
But I think our goal is to try to put in multiple sinks, which may,
Okay.
because they also need to, they have like, they do pottery, they need to clean.
Yeah. So you said inadequate, not adequate. I thought you said adequate.
No, inadequate.
All right.
Maybe I said adequate, but
A
they're,
little further away, but yeah.
they're inadequate.
Yeah. Okay.
And I will tell you, within the auto shop too, you're again dealing with things that you might want to wash your hands more frequently. And there is one sink in there that I think we can do a better job with.
Okay.
So that would then use up our ESSER 2 funds.
Okay. Frank and I are having that conversation.
Okay, ESSER 3. So again, purple has been used. White, you've already made those decisions, but that's money that has not gone to bills yet, but it is money that has been planned. This would really be at our middle school level. We had tried a design of trying to do different scheduling, to utilize different staff in a different way. We weren't really able to make that model work. So this would allow, we have some retired teachers who are leaving at the end of this year who, one has been retired and has worked for us on multiple occasions. She was the literacy support high school that you funded at $26,000. We would want to move her to the middle school level, as well as we have a teacher who is retiring at the end of this year who would be willing to work on a part-time basis. This allows us to have some very skilled people at a very inexpensive cost.
And what exactly are they doing?
So they would be working with the reading specialist to do small group instruction targeted. It also allows our reading specialist to allows them to do some of the leadership work around literacy rather than being a person who's giving all of the direct services. And the reading specialist at the middle high school goes to Sandwich as well. So it will provide a little more bandwidth.
Okay.
And that is what is proposed this evening for your consideration.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or?
Just again, without being the redundant, the 23-24 will be employing an elementary class size reduction teacher
Yes,
that I assume is that a 1-year contract?
yes. And the person is well aware of that. And that is in Sandwich.
And that was, that was something we dealt with.
But we've also talked about what's
Yeah,
next
the
year,
increase.
what's the structure with the sandwich gonna be next year?
So I think that's going to help us with this bubble. And then the year after the bubble we're hoping will be resolved.
There are two bubbles, is the way that it's ended up at this point. So the bubble that is in middle multi-age at the end of next year will move to upper multi-age. And then we'll follow that bubble through till that group of 17, which is 6th grade. So We should have 2 bubbles next year, and then we should be back down to 1 bubble. That will work its way out. It's that group of 17 third graders with 11 on either side of it that should be the, I don't want to say it's the last bubble, but it's the last bubble on my radar.
And it's the fact that we have 2 at the same time.
Well put.
Okay, we have a motion. All those, yep, and we had a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Easier to do this when it's somebody else's money, isn't it?
It's all of ours.
Well, it's pretty amazing how quickly it's gone, though, too, right?
Yeah.
Nomination of professional staff, attachment 14.
Bringing forward Lindsay Wilcox for physical education teacher.
So moved.
Second.
With great pleasure.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Permission to hire / accept resignations.
Generally, during the summer months, the board gives me permission to do that so that we
So
are
moved.
able to
Second.
act quickly.
All those in favor?
Don't you go crazy on us.
Donation.
Can't hire things that you haven't planned for.
Donation from the Influence PTO in the amount of $1,000 for 6th grade students to attend the Mara Vista experience.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
With gratitude.
With
Yeah,
gratitude.
Thank you.
Policy first readings, attachment 16 through 27.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
You got vote?
is any questions?
No.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Second reading, attachments 28 through 39.
So moved.
Second.
And, and we have a rescind too.
No, we gotta vote on that.
We're gonna vote on that. All those in favor of 20 through 39?
So moved.
Aye.
Second, yes.
I'm getting punchy.
Can't keep
Rescind,
Charlie too long. in
because
these
those are
meetings.
attachments 40 through 41.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aren't you glad you printed all that stuff up?
And we already did correspondence, right?
Yes.
And we've already closed the public
We're non-public with it.
comment
And you don't
section.
even have to read the
And we
announcements.
already did that. So I don't have to read the announcements?
That's right. We can all read it.
Okay.
You might want to read it for the
I
public.
know.
So
Tuesday,
what?
August 8th, Interlake
Keep
School
going.
Board meeting at the Humiston Building at 6 PM. At the regular school board meeting and policy review committee meetings to be determined.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
question for Ms.
Sure.
Moriarty. We're gonna try to have another policy review this month.
I would like to do that.
Okay.
If the policy is up to that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I say something? Claire, I just want to commend you and your staff for putting all this deck together
It's a lot.
and keeping us kind of on track.
We'll work
And
on,
all the work that you guys do, so
Yeah.
thank you very much. for
Thank
your
you.
help,
Thank you.
Okay?
we'll work on page numbers.
There's a lot
This
here.
has been a challenging year and we recognize that.
Okay. Now, the big question is the adjournment.
Your manifest to sign.
I'm not, I usually
Go
do,
ahead.
but
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
yeah.
And you your manifest to
Second,
sign.
can I second it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Don't leave,
Thank
we have the manifest.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Excellent.
There,
Don't go anywhere, you got stuff to sign.
Okay.
Oh, geez, something on Tennessee. And what?
Make it better. Curious.
I will. Oh.
These are magnets, but they're
Oh, they're-
they're other, the same messaging in other formats.
Yeah.
Get free from BPS.
Oh, I think that's great.
And everyone like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's free,
right? My husband saying, I need to go on it.
It's true.
Although after the data from the last meeting about like all the numbers.
And I am working on setting up that meeting, Charlie, and we'll work on another one with you guys.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much.
What if my daughter calls
So,
me out and like,
what we need to
Seriously, it was.
policy?
She's not up here now.
Like second.
Good job.
And then
I
that
gotta
comes
tell
off.
You too.
PRC
Yeah,
comes
nice
off.
catch.
Yes,
I
PRC.
Get over it, Mom.
I think it looks, we like PRC as our second
That's
thing,
not my
and
value
those
if
come
you
off.
look at that.
That's what I wanted to bring today.
Yeah, I love that.